Potočari!
Ajmo da je kompletnemo, frkajte!
Tako da je meta bila sve što je živo.
July 11, 1995, marked the beginning of the darkest chapter in European history since World War II, genocide in Srebrenica. 8,372 Bosniaks from Srebrenica were tortured, raped, and killed. Army of Republika Srpska carried out a systematic and consciously planned genocide in Srebrenica in less than a month. The enclave of Srebrenica was surrounded by territory under the administration of the Army of Republika Srpska. And because 40,000 Bosniaks expelled from ethnically cleansed settlements in the Drina River Valley sought refuge there, it had been declared a safe zone by the UN earlier in 1993.
There's a lot of people here, and there are people who very genuinely have had absolutely no food for 3 days.
In March 1995, the then president of Republika Srpska, Radovan Karadžić, signed a directive on creating conditions of total insecurity and intolerance in that area. The commander-in-chief of the Army of the Republika Srpska, Ratko Mladić, put this plan into action. On July 11th, Srebrenica fell, and the UN Dutch battalion handed over the civilians to the executioners.
Ajmo da je kompletnemo, frkaj me sad, pritisni oči urlanja da čujem juriš.
On that day, about 15,000 Bosniaks, mostly men, attempted to escape through the forest to the territory under the control of the Army of the Republic of Bosnia and Herzegovina. That became the path of death.
I onda je počela pucnjava po ljudima, znači vi sad zamislite kad imate nekoliko hiljada ljudi tu koji stoje, većina ljudi je stajala.
It was the last time a brother saw his brother, a father his son, a child his uncle. According to the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, only between 3,000 and 4,000 people reached the free territory. The Army of the Republika Srpska, members of the police, paramilitary formations and local Serb volunteers brutally killed the others in pursuit through the forest, as well as those who remained in Potočari.
Tako da je meta bila sve što je živo. Oni nisu gledali u što će gađati.
Over 8,000 of them were captured, tortured and killed in mass shootings, while 25,000 women, children and the elderly were forcibly displaced. The youngest victim of the Srebrenica genocide is a testament to the extent of the brutality of the Republika Srpska army, Fatima Muhić, a baby who was born and killed on the same day.
Jedno nam je drago što smo je pronašli, a drugo, kad pogledaš, ona je 6. iz kuće, mezar.
In the days and months that followed, an attempt began to cover up the crime. The bodies were buried in primary graves, and then bulldozers were used to move them to secondary and tertiary mass graves. This made it difficult to identify the victims, as the bodies were dismembered and scattered in multiple locations.
U septembru mjesecu 1995. godine od strane glavnog štaba naređeno premještanje posmrtnih ostataka muslimana koji su sahranjeni u grobnicama.
Although the families of the missing immediately began to search for them, a systematic and internationally supported search and identification began only after the war, at the end of 1995 and the beginning of 1996, with the establishment of the International Commission on Missing Persons. By 1999, the several primary and secondary graves were found, and since 2002, the ICMP office in Tuzla has been conducting DNA analysis of the remains. With the help of the ICMP, the Institute for Missing Persons was opened in 2005 and became operational in 2008. The task of the Institute: search for missing persons, data processing and storage, cooperation with the families of the missing, exhumation, identification, and creation of the central register of the missing. Throughout the 30 years of work by the ICMP and the Institute for Missing Persons, 81 mass graves in Srebrenica have been found, of which only 8 are primary. The search is still ongoing for around 800 victims of the Srebrenica genocide, as their locations remain unknown.
Imamo nijednoga. Eto sad su mi nevresa prvo našli, do sad nisu mi našli nijednoga. Trojica, samo same dvije presu.
Also, no one can identify some of the remains found because entire families were wiped out in the Srebrenica genocide, such as the family of Kada Hotić, a mother from Srebrenica who lost her son, husband, brother, and over 50 members of her family. She testified that in front of the UN Protection Force's eyes, newborn babies were crushed and Bosniak girls were raped.
Izgubila sam, na primjer, 4. A za amidže I za amidžiće, za tetiće I tu, što je bilo muška uha, ja sam tu sve.
The investigation and trial of the crimes in Srebrenica began in 1995 at the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia in The Hague. The first confession for the brutal crimes came in 1996 when Dražen Erdemović, a soldier of the Republika Srpska army, confessed to participating in the massacre at the Branjevo farm, where around 1,200 captured men were killed.
Ja sam I svome braniocu rekao da se izjašnjava krivi. Kad sam odbijao da radim, rekli su mi, ako mi ti je žao, stani ti s njima da I tebe ubijem.
The genocide in Srebrenica was legally proven with several judgments that were passed down in international and domestic courts. The first significant judgment that ruled on the genocide in Srebrenica was that of the Hague Tribunal in the case Prosecutor versus Krstić in 2004. Also, the International Court of Justice confirmed in 2007 that the crimes in Srebrenica were genocide. Since 2017, the work of the International Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia has been continued by the Mechanism for International Criminal Courts and the judiciary in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia and Serbia. The Srebrenica genocide had a significant impact on international law. For the first time ever, DNA analysis were used as key evidence in international trials for war crimes. 30 years later, Srebrenica has become a symbol of crimes against humanity and genocide in modern Europe. 54 people were sentenced to a total of 781 years in prison and 5 life sentences for genocide for Ratko Mladić, Radovan Karadžić, Zdravko Tolimir, Vujadin Popović and Ljubiša Beara. The Srebrenica genocide left unhealed wounds and multi-generational trauma for survivors and those who still do not know where the bones of their loved ones are.
Ti ljude koji su odvodili uglavnom nikad se više nisu vraćali.
Srebrenica and the surrounding villages are demographically shattered, with significantly fewer residents, a changed ethnic structure, and a pronounced sense of mistrust. Distrust resulting from murders, torture, and rape. Hundreds of women were raped during the genocide in Srebrenica, and the exact number of children born after the crime of rape has never been determined due to silence, stigma, and lack of documentation. This remains one of the most severe and least researched consequences of the war today. And in 2024, Bosnia and Herzegovina became the first country in the world to recognize the status of civilian victims of war to children born from the crime of war rape. However, the denial of genocide, which is also considered the last stage of genocide, is still present, which is why it has become a criminal offense in Bosnia and Herzegovina since 2021. But this was not agreed upon by the local authorities. Amendments to the criminal law of Bosnia and Herzegovina were imposed by Valentin Inzko, the then High Representative of the international community. Denying genocide or glorifying war criminals is punishable by imprisonment of 6 months to 5 years. So far, at least 5 indictments have been filed in Bosnia and Herzegovina against a total of 6 people, and 1 conviction has been made. The genocide in Srebrenica deeply shaped political relations and social divisions in the Balkans. While other neighboring countries of Bosnia and Herzegovina recognize the genocide in Srebrenica, Serbia still characterizes it as a serious crime and refuses to extradite suspects to Bosnian judiciary, further burdening the process of dealing with the past. In one of Bosnia and Herzegovina's entities, Republika Srpska, whose army and police participated in committing genocide, officials actively deny the genocide, which deepens divisions and slows down reconciliation. Along with Bosnia and Herzegovina, Slovenia, Croatia, Albania and North Macedonia were co-sponsors of the resolution on the Srebrenica genocide, voted in May 2024, by which 84 UN member states decided to mark July 11th every year as the International Day of Remembrance of the Genocide in Srebrenica. Even 30 years later, the Srebrenica genocide is not part of textbooks in Bosnia, nor in the region, as education remains a point of political conflict, with the truth often depending on governing entity or state border. While the search for the missing continues below the blood-soaked earth of Srebrenica, so too does the quest for justice, truth, and reconciliation.